Hello and welcome to my creative space. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Welcome to another DIY video. If you're not already, I would love for you to subscribe and join this creative squad. In today's video, I have 4 brand new summer DIYs. I can't wait to show you how I DIY them, so let's get started. For this project, I will be using this bicycle wheel wreath from Dollar Tree as well as this circle sign. I'm also going to use some ribbon. I only end up using the lemon one. I'm also going to need 2 of these stamps from Dollar Tree as well as yellow and white paint. Okay, I'm going to start with the bicycle wheel wreath, and as you can see, one of these metal pieces was already missing, which is what gave me the idea for this wreath. So what I do is I take my pliers and I start cutting every other metal piece, and as you can see, it's harder to just cut the top, but then once you get to the middle, that is totally easy. They come off really easily. Then you're left with these little pieces, and I just take my pliers and try to get as close as I can to try and cut them down as much as I can. Next step is to spray paint this wheel with white color. You could also paint it with any white paint. Next, we're gonna let that wheel dry, and I decided to take this plaster to cover up the little hole. This is definitely an option, but it definitely makes a difference. Okay, now that that is ready, I'm going to use this yellow paint. This is the Waverly chalk paint, but I did add a little bit of white to it to make it a little bit lighter. That is just my preference. You're more than welcome to leave it as is or use a different yellow. Now I give it a good coat and then I let it dry because it definitely didn't cover everything up. So I went back in there once it was dried with a second coat, and the second coat was perfect. Then I also make sure that I painted the edges on this piece. Okay, anyways, now we're gonna move on to the next step, which is taking the yellow circle and our wheel. Now I added some glue to the middle, and then I try to center it as best as I could. Then once I placed it on there, I figured that was not gonna hold it, and I was trying to figure out what to do to make sure everything sticks together. And that's when I decided to flip it over and grab this little cotton twine. I picked it up from Dollar Tree, and I grabbed a piece and I glue the piece in the middle, and then I add a ton of glue, let it dry. Once it's dried, I take one of the ends and I run it around the metal piece, and then once that is done, I am going to take the other end and run it to the top as well. And I was trying to secure this sign into place, because if we don't do this, then I don't know what else I could do to hold it in place. And so that's what I came up with, and definitely works really well. And the cotton twine is so thin that you definitely don't even see it once it's on there. As you can see, I'm kind of just running it on there and then adding some hot glue, letting it dry before I move on, and it definitely did work. Then I just reinforce with a ton more glue, hold it in place, let it dry. Once it's completely dry, I took a piece of paper and I glue it right there in the middle to make sure that it's going to hold in place. Now, my original idea was to cover up the whole back of this, but I didn't have the paper that I wanted to use, so I don't end up covering it, but definitely will cover it later on. Now, I also end up creating a knot and then gluing it down, and voila, we have this ready to go. Now I flipped it over, and as you can see, it's starting to get the shape of a lemon, or at least to me. Now I have these 2 words. The welcome one, it's a metal word, and Dollar Tree does sell them in like a pack of like 3 of them, I think, if not maybe a couple, but I haven't seen them lately, but I had that one already. Now the home word comes in a pack of 2, and it has 2 words on it. I don't end up using the word home. I only end up going with the word welcome, and I spray painted it black, which it was already like that. That's why I left it like that. And then as you can see, I grabbed the 2 stamps, cut both of them in half, and then that is going to be the top of my wreath. Now I'm taking a sip. What are these called? the zip ties, sorry, and then using that to hold my stems into place. And I absolutely love these leaves because they definitely look like lemon leaves to me, and so I thought they were perfect for this. Now once those are secured in place, I took the lemon ribbon and I cut 3 pieces the exact same size. And once those are done, I'm going to take one, fold it in half, kind of create a crease, then zigzag some hot glue, and then glue the 2 ends to the middle. Once they are glued together, before this glue dries, I turn it around and then I fold the middle and then the 2 edges down, and then I add this little clip to make sure it holds in place. And I do end up adding some hot glue in between those creases to make sure, you know, they're not going to unravel, and I don't know if that's the correct word, but to make sure that it stays, you know, in place. And then I took the 3 pieces and glued them together. And this is usually how I DIY my bows. Nothing hard at all. Everything is so simple. Now I'm just taking an extra piece. I'm going to use that to secure the bow to our stems and the wheel. So I add some hot glue that is going to be glued in on the stems, and then I'm gonna add some hot glue to the bow and sit the bow right there in the middle. And then I'm just going to wrap around this ribbon, and I'll turn it around so you can see exactly what I'm doing here in a little bit. Okay, so here it is. I'm gonna turn it around. Ignore the back. I know it looks ugly. Okay, I'll fix it, and I will definitely fix it. But anyways, once that bow is glued into place, how cute is this looking? Now I have these lemons I picked up from Hobby Lobby last year. I'm sure they still have them, and actually I will be looking for them because I'm gonna use them for some other project and some other ideas I have. But I take the first 2 big ones, and those I stick them onto the stem, and for the other 2 little ones I hot glued them into place. So I kind of just play around, see where I want them, add some hot glue, and then I just place them on there, and I just kind of hold them there for a little bit. Okay, now you can leave the wreath as is. It looks beautiful, but I decided to add the word welcome to it, and this is a word that came on a Dollar Tree sign. It's a metal word, and I just spray painted black, and I decided to go ahead and add it to my wreath. I added some hot glue, just placed it on there. But if you want to recreate it and you end up gluing something to it, if you're going to use it for your outdoors, then just make sure you use a stronger glue. And if not, then you can do what I am doing right now. And that is all for this project. Now let's take a look at the end result. And here is how my lemon wreath turned out. I absolutely love everything about this wreath. Definitely one of my favorites in this video. Let me know in the comments down below if you think the same about my wreath. And now let's jump into the next DIY. For our next project, I will be taking this rectangle wooden plate from Dollar Tree as well as this circle mirror. I'm also going to be taking this wooden dowel that measures 7 inches. I'm going to take a candle and some lemons. Yes, you heard it right. More lemons. Are you surprised? And then I'm also going to use some blue paint. Now, I grabbed that blue paint, which I love that color, but I wanted it to be a little bit darker. So I added some black paint, mixed it, and created this navy blue color. I didn't have this color, which is why I had to mix the 2 colors, and I absolutely love it. Now, once it's completely painted, we're gonna let it dry. Once it was dried, I took my drill and I created a hole, but it was a little bit too big, but I end up making it work. I just added a ton of glue and then placed my wooden dowel, kind of held it there into place until the glue dried, and this is what it's looking like so far. Now, as you can see, I took one of the lemons, and these lemons, again, they're from Hobby Lobby. I took the biggest one and then I created the hole, and then I ran it through the wooden dowel. Now, you can place these lemons however you want them. I kind of place them sideways, kind of tilt them, and you know, you just play around with what you want. And once I was adding them as I was creating the holes in them, kind of just see exactly where I wanted them to sit, and I end up using 4 of these lemons. Now at the very top, as you can see, it almost covered up everything, and now it's time to add our mirror. I use hot glue and it's holding just fine. Just make sure you add plenty of glue. And once I added the mirror, I kind of just held it into place for a little bit, and I actually end up turning this around. And hello, did you see me? I had no idea I was gonna be shown on there, but anyway, that's besides the point. So I turned it around, kind of just hold it there for a little bit, but that is all for this project. Now, as you can see, here is the end result. I love how easy and beautiful this DIY turned out. As you can see, it's holding a candle just fine, and I really love it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. For this project, I will be using this beaded garland. I'm also going to be using this cotton twine and this cotton yarn. I'm also going to use this jute rope, or I guess just jute. And then I'm going to use this canning snap lids. It comes in a pack of 10, and I'm going to use some yellow paint and also some white paint. Okay, I'm going to start with the little lids. It comes again in a pack of 10, and I will be spray painting all of these. And I did this because it's going to be way faster than, using a brush, but definitely can be done if you hand paint these. Now, once those are dried, here's going to be two options you can do. I took this paper in the shape of a circle, and I kind of measured it onto the lids, and I started cutting little pieces on the inside, like little triangles, and trying to create a lemon. As you can see, this is what I got so far. So I did that all around. Here's what I came up with. I took that, and I am using that as a stencil. I took a pencil, draw the lines on there, what is going to be shaping into a lemon, and then I took some of the white chalk paint from Waverly, and I started painting those on there, and this is to create the cute little lemon. Now this is what it's looking like. Now definitely my hand and my painting skills are not great, and so there's also another option. You could use your Cricut machine if you have one, and just have the machine cut this for you, which definitely look a little bit different. But again, my drawing skills or painting skills are not that great, so I end up going with the Cricut machine. As you can see, I left those for how they were, and I just did the other 6 with my Cricut machine. Now I took the jute, and originally I wanted to use this whole thing, but the beads are not big enough, so I decided to unravel this, and I'm just going to be using the blue part. Now I needed something else onto this jute, and I decided to wrap around this cotton twine just to give it that hint of yellow and make it look all cohesive. And then once that was all wrapped around, I am going to start adding the beads, and I'm not going to lie, it was a little bit hard to push those beads through it, but I do end up succeeding. So here is what this garland is looking like. I feel like I should have made it a little bit smaller, or should have bought more beads, but I still end up liking how this turns out. But yeah, definitely will be it will be optional to you. Now, as you can see, I took 2 of the lids, and I originally was going to glue them onto this jute, but it's too thick, so the 2 lids would not close. And so I decided to remove them and instead cut a piece of this cotton twine and then glue that inside the 2 lids, and it looked like it was going to be just perfect. So that's what I decided to do. So I cut a piece of the twine, of the cotton twine, and then I hot glued that in between the 2 lids, and that created the lemon that I was trying to go for, which is, be a double-sided lemon. And then once that was dried, I tied that onto my garland, or the jute, and I just created 2 little knots. And first I let these hang on there, and then I decided that I was going to create little bows and kind of just trim them down. So I end up doing all the same. I glued the 2 lids together, creating those lemons, and this is looking super cute. Now the next step is creating a tassel. I end up using both the cotton twine and just the yarn, and I like that they were kind of slightly different yellows, so I decided to use them. Now the tassels, I'm sure you've seen in the past how how you make them. I just took a piece of that cardboard, kind of just wrapped it around, and once that was wrapped around, I trimmed the bottom, and then I decided I was going to take the top and glue that part to the ute. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize that the camera wasn't catching exactly what I was doing, but that's literally what I did. I glued the end to the middle of this soon to be tassel, and then I just grabbed another piece of the cotton twine and I just started wrapping it around. And that's what it's going to shape in our tassel into a tassel. Then I just secured it, and that is what it looks like. Now I'm kind of just playing around with the beads, and here is our tassel. Now you can create 2 tassels, but I decided to use this word home. It's the laser cutout. They're newer at Dollar Tree. I don't know how long they've been at Dollar Tree because I just recently now went. I found them, and this one I painted it yellow with the exact same yellow I use. Or I guess it was the little darker yellow. Yeah, the one from Apple Barrel. I will leave the information in the comment section if you need the exact color for this. And then I didn't show this because I didn't know I was going to use it. And then I decided to wrap this around. I grabbed another piece of the cotton twine and secure both the garland to the word home. And that is honestly all I did for this part. Again, you could do 2 tassels if you don't find these letters, but this is what I got so far. Now that completes this project, and let's check out the end result. And here is how this garland turned out. And this garland is perfect for my little corner with all these little decorations. I absolutely love it. And that sign, I DIY'd that on one of my videos from last year. If you're interested in seeing it, it's gonna show up here. So be sure to check it out if you want to know how I DIY'd that. And now let's jump into the next DIY. For this project, I'm going to use this tin container from Dollar Tree as well as these sphere floral foams. I'm also going to use some greenery, some green moss, some more floral foam, as well as our stars in this show, which are the beautiful lemons. I'm also going to need either a wooden dowel or a branch and some blue and white paint. Now, I went off camera and spray painted this tin container white, and once that was dried, I took my navy blue color I used in my earlier project, and I decided to paint the top part. Now, these are the tin containers the Dollar Tree sells, and they come with some twine wrapped around the top. That was removed off of it, and I decided to paint that blue. Now, once that is done and dried, I'm going to start adding some floral foam, and as you can see, this is kind of like a Jenga game because I had some different pieces in different sizes, and I really needed this to be tall, so I kind of just play around with them, and this is what I came up with. But once that was glued down, I took some of this reindeer moss and I pushed it in there, and then I also added a couple of pieces of foam that I had left over just to keep that a little bit higher because I didn't have a lot of this green moss, and I really needed this to show at the top. So that was my technique with all this Jenga gameplay with the foam. And then once that was completed, I set that to the side. And next, I took one of the sphere floral foams and I poured some more of this green moss that was a little bit lighter into a container. I added some hot glue onto the floral foam, and then I just started gluing the moss onto this. This is so we can cover this bowl completely, and once we go to the next step, no white is going to be showing. Now I do all of that, and here is what we got so far. Now the next step is to glue either our wooden dowel or our branch, which I decided to go with the branch because I like the texture and I just think like it adds a lot more to this project. So I hot glued that branch into place, and then I take my greenery, I cut them all in individual pieces, and I started placing them into the ball. And I apologize because I know the view is not great, but I just randomly placed them on there, and I know this is looking weird, but trust the process. And this is what I got so far. Now I decided to go ahead and add this onto my planter because I wanted to see what it looks like. And then as you can see, one of the lemons is already there, and it was hot glued into it. And then I decided there was a faster way to do this, which is taking any of the greenery stems, the metal greenery stems, and then cut them in smaller pieces, and then add those to the lemons, and then use those same stems to push them into the fluorofoam. And this was way faster because you don't have to wait on hot glue to dry or risk these lemons falling off of it. It worked perfectly fine. Now, once I was done adding the lemons, I decided I needed a little bit more greenery. So I had this other greenery from Dollar Tree. I decided to cut them in small pieces and add them randomly on there. And honestly, that completes this project. It was super easy to do. Now, let me show you the end result. Here is how this lemon tree turned out. I love how this is looking. Absolutely love the colors. I love everything about it. This one in the wreath are definitely one of my favorites. I will love to hear which one of these projects is your favorite. So let me know in the comments down below which one of these projects was your favorite, which one you're going to recreate. And if you are not subscribed to my channel, I will love for you to subscribe and join this creative squad. And if you are looking for some more inspo, click on one of these videos because I'm sure you'll find a DIY that you like. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you on my next DIY. Bye.